Hey guys, welcome to RC Video Reviews. I've got a first look video for you today, and this is the ToolkitRC M7ac, and this is a sponsor video. So I want to say thanks to ToolkitRC for sending this M7ac out for review, and I have affiliate links in the description. If you're interested in getting one for yourself, you can go out and check out the description, and I've got a couple affiliate links both for Banggood and Amazon. And so for my plan for the video today is that I want to go through and do the normal stuff that I always do, and that's to verify the wattage. I want to do that. And then I'm going to do a quick little calibration, and I'm going to show you the output voltage just to make sure that, you know, the main things that we're looking for in these devices is functional, and then we'll wrap it up. So as you can see right off the bat, this is a AC charger, but it's also AC, it's AC DC, so it's dual power. And I've got the AC plugged in right here on the back, and there's also an input for a DC plug. And then another cool thing about this little charger is they've got a little flip-up stand on the base, which I think is great because that means you're not just looking at a flat screen when it's on your desk. You can put that little flip-up stand on the bottom and stand it up, which is very cool. And then there's also the AC power switch on the back and a fan, and of course the DC input. And then around this side, you've got a trans flash card and a fan opening. Actually, that looks like a speaker opening. I looked real close, and that's a speaker. And then around the front, you've got a USB output, so 5 volts, 2.1 amps on the output. And of course, there's the input and output pins for some of the testing function you've got on this charger, the balance lead, and then the XT60. And there's another cool little thing too. This is the output port for the XT60, but they also add an XT30 output, which I think is very nice because I've got batteries that are XT30, and it's nice not to hunt around for an adapter and just have it built right into the charger. So very handy little feature to have that. And then let's see, I'll plug that back in. And then around this side, just a ToolkitRC label, and that's it. Little bit of bling there for you, a little bit of shine. So I like the form factor, and I really like the stand. I think these kind of little functionality updates are very cool to have, and I'm glad to have that. So with that in mind, I want to cover the charge scenarios we're going to do first. So I've got three 6-cell 5000s attached to a parallel board, and I've got the voltage set. The voltage on these batteries is 22.95, so they're close to storage state, and I've got the amperage set at something ridiculously high. So the main thing is this is supposed to be a 100 watt AC and a 300 watt DC charger. Okay, so we're going to run an AC charge first. I've got the AC plugged in, and I'm just going to run an AC charge, and I'll show you the settings that I'm using. I've got it set on, well, let's see. I thought I had it. Oh, I had the selector on the wrong screen. There we go. Okay, so I've got the charge current set at 9 amps. And the way you figure this out, if you're not sure about this, I'll do the math real quick for you. The voltage right now on this device is, on these batteries, is 22.95. So 22.95, that's the voltage, times the amps. I have it at 9 amps. That should be about 206 watts. That's a full 100 watts higher than this is rated for. So what I expect it to do is peg the wattage reading at the full 100 watts that this is supposed to support on AC. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and start the charge. I'll long press the jog dial button. We're going to get into all the menu stuff too. We'll get into all the menu information later. I'll show you that. But we'll press the jog dial button. I'm going to leave the current set at 9 amps and just hit start. And we're going to look and see where we get in terms of wattage. And you can see right here on the screen, let me go ahead and just zoom in a little so you guys can get a close look at this. There we go, 97.8 watts on AC. Now, again, we're not going to charge the whole battery up. You know, we don't want to sit here and just watch the screen for 20 minutes. I think you guys have all seen a battery charge before, so we won't do that. But notice how it's limiting itself to 4.2 amps and 23 volts, and that means we have a limitation of about 100 watts on AC. So that checks out. That makes sense. And just now the fans are kicking on, so I can hear the fans spool up. Okay, what's the SD card slot for from Bill or Brian? The SD card slot, they have the ability to display sound, a logo file and sounds. So I'll give you a look at the sounds in just a minute, but I'm going to just stop the charge because we got to the 100 watts pretty fast, and so that means on AC it does what it says it's going to do. So that's kind of where I stop these tests. I haven't done, you know, regarding long-term testing, it's kind of it's kind of important to do that. So what I like to do with the chargers that I'm going to hold on to is I'll keep them on the desk, just like I do with this M9. I have this M9 that's on the desk. I use this on a pretty regular basis. So eventually I'll do a longer term review and let you know how it's holding up over time. But all I can do, you know, on these first looks is just tell you what I see. So decent fans. Yeah, the fans are quite noisy when they get going. That definitely, it made some noise. It's clearly moving some air, no doubt about that. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do to show you the 300 watt DC rate is I'm going to plug in a 6L5000 75C as the power supply up top. And I want it to shut off first. So I'm going to unplug the output lead. And we'll just plug this battery in the back, and that should power the unit up. And there's the logo. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see that. Let me just unplug it again, and we'll do it again. So keep an eye. This, you asked about the SD card. You can put a file in here called logo.bmp, and it will let you customize basically the boot screen. So I have a customized boot screen on this one. It'll show the M7 and my channel logo right there. Yeah, it's kind of hard to deal with the camera. It just flashes by really fast. Okay, so as far as the power adapter goes, I'm going to select battery. I do have it set on select the power option because that's just what I do. But you don't have to. You can have it set on automatic. But I set it on battery. And again, when we get into the menu system, I'll show you that. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is plug in the output lead from the balance board here. And we're going to do a charge. And what we're looking for on the charge is 300 watts. So this charger is supposed to support 300 watts of charge power. So I want to do that. And the way we'll figure out how to get 300 watts is we'll take the 300 watt number, 300, and we'll divide it by the voltage of 22.96. If I can use a calculator here, 300 divided by 22.96, that means 13 amps. So if I set this to 13 amps, we should have a 300 watt outcome. So let me just set this up to 13 amps real quick. I don't have any problems running 13 amps to 3 of these batteries. That's no problem. In fact, I'll just set it at 13 and a half, and we'll make sure we punish it the best we can. So with 13 amps at 4.2 volts and 22.96 volts on the output, that should get us close to 300 watts. So I'll just, input voltage is too high. All right, input voltage is too high, huh? 24.11. You know, I was messing around with that while I was testing. Let me just see if I can, oh, voltage range, that's your problem. The input voltage range is set to 19. I don't know why that's set to 19. It says adapter. Interesting. We don't want it on adapter. We want it on battery. Okay, hold on a second. I don't know why it's on battery or adapter. I did set it on battery, I'm sure of it. Maybe I just missed it when I plugged it in. We'll have to check it. Okay, we want it on battery. That's P1 battery, 300 watts. And I'm just going to check to make sure that's what it selected. Okay, input settings, battery 300 watts. Okay, the voltage range on that is 21. So what I did was I was doing a little bit of testing, and in order to protect the input battery, I wanted to set a voltage range of 21 to 25. And the idea was that if the input battery got below that range, then it should cut off. And that apparently is, that feature is working, but for some reason it was set on adapter instead of battery. Anyway, that's live. You know, this is what happens in a live video over a production video. So we'll go back to what we were doing. We're back on track now. And I'll go ahead and hit start, and we're going to stick with that 13.5 amps, and we'll just hit go here. And we should see now a really quick jump. I was on that screen. A quick jump up to 300 watts, and there it is. So 301, yeah, it's delivering the power. So I have no problems with that. I'll let it go for a little while, just make sure nothing overheats, and I'll check the comments, see if there's any other questions I need to answer before we move on. So a 3S would charge 8 amps or so on AC. On AC, yep, you take 100. Okay, so 3 cell, you would take your, say your nominal or your average voltage at 3.86, and then multiply that times 3. So you got about 11.5 volts, and you want to take 100 divided by 11.5. Yep, 8.7 amps is about right. Not much of a problem. So 3S would charge 8 amps or so. Yep, 8 amps on AC, no problem. And of course, you can split that up if you're doing parallel charging. The M4D is 18. Yeah, this one has a 25 volt max input. Obviously, I've got a 6L battery connected, and I did charge it up before I ran the testing. So you can see we've got 300 watts going, and we are hitting about 12.5. And by the way, this amperage number will drop as the voltage increases, right? Because it's a fixed formula. The wattage is fixed at 300 watts, and as the voltage climbs, the amperage has to come down. So that's the way that'll work when you're peaking, all right? Okay, I don't really have any problems with this. It seems to be doing what it's supposed to do, so I'm just going to stop that. And then the next thing I want to do is do a quick calibration. And what we're going to do there is I'm just going to disconnect the input source. I'm going to take that off. And then we're going to disconnect the output source. And then I'm going to hold the jog dial. Just hold this jog dial down and plug the output source back in. And that brings us into the calibration menu. And the first thing we'll do is I'm going to bring up the balance board, because I kind of like to use these balance boards. And I think I have to zoom out a little for you guys here to get everything in the screen that we need to be able to see. Okay, so there we go. There's the board, the balance board, and the device. So I like to use the balance boards because by using a balance board, I can just tap into these ports on the side with my meter. So I'm going to plug my meter in. And what we're looking at, if you've never seen this done before, is I want to show you how to do a calibration. And I do expect you guys got to do calibrations, right? You have to check it. It should be pretty close from the factory, but you need to check your work, okay? And the way it works, the first cell is the farthest one away from positive. So it's the first negative, and then you work toward positive. So this is a 6L battery. That means this one down here is number 1, and then we go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down the row. And all you do is put your red lead toward the red lead on your balance port, okay? So, and it doesn't really matter. Your voltmeter should be able to deal with both. So here we go. We've got a reading of 3.839, and I want to look on the charger, and we see 3.839-ish. I don't get too wrapped around the axle around this third digit. I mean, that's really starting to split hairs, to be honest. So I really don't worry about that one too much. I think, 8.3, if it's close, if it's within maybe 5/1000ths of a volt, you probably don't want to complain too much about that. But this one looks pretty close. Then we'll move over to the next pin. And on this one, I've got 3.843, and I see 3.842 on the charger, 8.4142, so we're real close there. All right, cell number 3, we're looking at 3.842. That one's dead nuts on. And we'll go over to number 4, and I see 3.842, also dead nuts on. And here is number 5, 3.837. Yep, that looks really good. And then 3.841 to 42. So yeah, I'd say that looks pretty good. Overall, the calibration on this looks fine. I don't have any issues with this. And then the next thing you can do if you want is you can do a voltage check for your input. So all I'm going to do is connect my input battery to my voltmeter, and we'll take a look at what that says. So the input battery says 24.51 volts, and then we'll plug that in on the top, and we'll check that. We'll check and see if we're getting 24.51 volts, and it's pretty close. Did I say 24.51? Let me just verify it and make sure. That's close. It's close. And on the input battery, I think it's a lot less. Yeah, 24.51. So on the input battery, I think it's a little, not as important to be really close. So what I'm going to do is increase this value. This is 24.37, and I want to change that to 24.51. So we'll just spool this up a little bit, and we're looking for 24.51 right here on the input. So I'm going to spool. There we go. There's 24.51. And then the last thing to do, output, if you want to check that, you can. The way you would do that is just put your meter, real simple here. I had to switch to these probes anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to these probes, and we'll take a look at the output and make sure that's right as well. So I'm going to take one set of probes off and replace them with another set, and we'll just do a quick little look at the output. So the output is telling me 23.03, And all I'm going to do to check the output is put a positive probe here. And here, remember, this is parallel. Oops, I had it backwards. That's okay. Doesn't matter to a voltmeter, thankfully. Okay, 23.004. Yeah, that's pretty close. I see 23.036. So I'll leave that. I wouldn't mess with that. 23.03 on the output, 23.04 on my meter. That's fine. Everything looks good there. Okay, so regarding calibration, once you're done, the last thing to do, and by the way, if you have an 8-cell battery, you can do 2 more cells, right? 7 and 8. I don't have an 8-cell, so that's what you get. But you get the process. The next thing you need to make sure you do is hit save. Don't forget to hit save. And I can see on the monitor that it's having a hard time with the screen brightness. So we'll go ahead and hit save. And then after you hit save, then you can go ahead and hit exit. And that'll reboot it back into the operating system. Okay. There were a couple of other things that I want to do, and I want to make sure I've got the right probes for this. So first up, I want to check the output. I wanted to check the power output and give you guys a look at that. I think for the battery charging, I think we're done. So I'll set this little brick of watt hours aside over there. Ugh, that's a lot of power. A lot of power. Okay, the next thing I want to do is show you guys the output, because this does have, these are multifunction devices, right? And one thing that's really cool about them is they can actually output some power. So if you need it, for your bench, this is one of my favorite things about these multifunction chargers, is you can select different features. And I seem to always forget which one I'm supposed to be pressing. Okay, there we go. So we're going to do power output, and I'm just going to select power. And I'm going to select the output voltage at 13.2, and then I'll hit start. And all I'm going to do is put my probes. The output power comes on this output lead right here, okay? So it does not come on these pins. These pins are constant 5 volt, and that keeps you from blowing up your receivers. But the output power, if you need to have like a servo connector, you can always take a XT60 female and wire a servo lead, like one of these, and wire it onto an XT60, and that way you can have a variable range of power output to one of these standard servo leads if you want to do that. But anyway, let's just to check the power, we'll set this down. I'm going to put my pins on the end of this XT60, and 13.2, there we go, 13.2, and that's what I asked for, is 13.2. So that's pretty good. That's on the money. And the next thing I'll do is let's raise it. Let's raise it and see how high we can go. We can go up to 28 volts on the output, and we'll see how it goes on my meter over here. 28.01. That looks very good. And then let's go the other way, get it down on the low end and see what we do on the low side. So 1 volt on the low side. We'll see how that registers on the meter here. Okay, 0.994, 0.99. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's pretty close. That's pretty close. So I got to give them, props for that. That's a good showing in terms of making sure that we've got the right output voltage. It looks to me to be very calibrated. So in other words, it looks safe. If you want to use that for for bench testing, that's one of my favorite features about these little guys, is that you can use them for bench testing, and I think that's pretty cool. Okay, there's one other thing that I want to show you, and then we're going to go through the menu system, and then we'll wrap it up. So the next thing I want to show you is I'm going to connect another probe, a different lead to this, and I want to show you what the input and output lines look like, because that's important if you're doing testing, if you want to plug a receiver in and you're doing testing. So I've got my voltmeter, and I've just connected a servo lead to my pins, and I'm going to plug this in on the input. So here's the input, and ground is on top, so you make sure you get that right. Ground is on top, and there's 5 volts for the input. So you got 5 volts on the input rail, and then for the output rail, you've also got 5 volts. And keep in mind that those values, that's hot. So like the minute when you plug that charger in, let me just unplug this real quick. Unplug it, and see the volts are dropping off. But as soon as you plug that in, this is not a power output thing, right? Those just go hot. It's like it's like a BEC on your ESC. The minute you turn it on, you've got voltage on those pins. Okay, so just keep that in mind if you're using these input and output pins to input PWM test or an S-bus test or whatever, you know, that the point is that you got voltage as soon as you plug that in right off the bat. You don't have to select anything. It's just right off the bat. Okay. All right. I'm going to check questions and then I'm going to show you the menu and then we're going to wrap it up. So let's see. Did not do exact match, just over the thumb. 12 by 8 equals 96. Yeah, you're close. You measured without load, but connecting to a charger puts load on the battery. I've done it both ways. It doesn't really matter. I've done the calibration both with and without load, and it really simply doesn't matter. Hit that like button. So I guess your input voltage is now incorrect set. I like that it's set. It's not true, man. I've done it with both, and the variance has been like 0.01 volts. So it really doesn't matter. Okay. The next thing I want to do is show the. I'm going to show the menu. So we'll click on the menu. We'll long press on the jog dial. One thing I want to mention about the jog dial that I noticed in use is that it feels much more precise than just about any other electronics jog dial I've ever used. It feels very accurate. So a lot of times in these jog dials, when you start moving them, they go the wrong direction, they skip. I'm really not seeing that on this one. So input settings, we already kind of touched on that a little bit. And I have this one set at battery and max power at 350 watts. You can program in what you want this device to be able. It's just, these are constraining factors, right? So if you have max power set at 200 watts, then if the charger says, hey, we're going over 200 watts, it'll slow things down or cut off the charge. And that's what that input power option is really all about. Same with the voltage range. You saw that in practice, right? For some reason, I had 19 volts selected, and you saw what happened in practice. I tried to use more than that, and the charger said, no, not going to happen. All right, so let's see. Security settings, these are really just about preventing things like overheating. So the internal and external temps can be set at 80 and 60. That's the default. And I guess you can adjust those. I don't know, when they say external temp, I don't really see like a spot for a probe to be plugged in. So I'm not really sure where they're reading the external temp from. Maybe it's something on the inside of the case. I really just don't know. Safe time is a value set to avoid prolonged charging. Not a bad idea to leave that set. Your charges shouldn't take more than about 30 minutes anyway. So it's really, I think, not a bad idea to set that to something more reasonable. Just keep in mind that they're going to have a trickle. You have the ability to trickle, and I think that counts. So just keep that in mind. And then safe capacity, you can plug in a value here to prevent an overcharge of current into your or capacity into your batteries if you want to set that as well. Under personalization, you have options like the backlight. Maybe I should have set the backlight a little lower for video. That might have made the camera a little easier, but then you start to see the flashing sometimes. So anyway, there's backlight. Operations volume, if you turn this on, this is what controls the beeps. I turn it off because I really don't like beeps. But I'll point out that somebody earlier asked about the SD card and the prompts. If you put the audio prompts on the SD card, then it actually uses the wave file from the prompt, which is kind of cool. It's not like a electrical generated tone, like a beep, beep, beep. It's more like a wave file. So anyway, I leave those off. I don't like those on. Then you have announce volume, which is, if you hover over a field, the charger actually talks to you. It'll say okay and set and on, off, it'll say all these different things. But again, I don't like a lot of noise with my charger, so I turn that stuff off. All right. Regarding languages, there's English, German, French, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, and some Asian languages that I can't read. And that's it. So we'll go back up to the top and hopefully I can find English again. There we go. And then for theme style, of course, you've got dark and light. I like the dark theme when I'm inside, but outside it turns out that the light theme is a little better and easier to read. So I'll leave that set on dark. And then for battery selection, if you turn this on, what happens is when you go to charge a battery, it'll bring up that little menu saying which battery are you using. I generally turn that off. I only left it on for the demo, but I prefer just to set my parameters as I go. So I will turn that off for production. And then continuous work. This is a feature where if you're charging a bunch of batteries that are the same, say you're charging a bunch of 6L5000s, what will happen is once one is charged, when you disconnect it from the charger and plug another one in, it just goes right back to work charging. You don't have to touch anything. So it's kind of a cool little feature. I actually use that quite a bit on my chargers when it's supported. I do use continuous work. But, the thing is you really want it to be the same battery, the same style of battery in terms of amperage and voltage. And then work completed. So what this means is when the charge is complete, you have some options, including trickle or just stop. So you can end the charge or you can trickle. I leave mine on trickle. That way, while I'm not sitting there watching the charger, it will go ahead and balance charge and kind of trickle charge it. And then balance start voltage. So what this means is it'll start balancing your cells right away. And you can set a range on here for negative 500, negative 400, negative. So if your cells are out of whack by this amount, it'll start balance charging before it applies full current. That's what it says in the book. I haven't really, like I'm not sure what their variance test is when you have it on always, because when I plug in anything I plug in, it immediately goes to full power. So I guess if you want to specify a variance of say negative 500 millivolts or 500 millivolts, then it will only apply full power if the range is within that negative space, I guess. I'm never really fooled with it. I just leave it on always, and as soon as I plug in, they go to full current. And then, of course, you can hit default, and then there's the ID, including the firmware revision of 3.0. Okay, let's see. I think if I long press this, no, it's this one. These are the features on the radio. So you can measure resistance, measure signal. So if you have an S-Bus or a PWM receiver, you can plug those into the input. I've done videos on this before for Toolkit, so I'm not going to do it again. But you can do an S-Bus test. So if you have an S-Bus receiver, you can put it on the input and run your sticks back and forth and check and make sure your S-Bus channels are working the way they're supposed to. And so they've got PWM, PPM, and S-Bus capabilities for measuring your signal input. For signal output, same deal. It's like a servo tester. So you plug a servo into the output, and you can set your width at 1500, and that should center the servo up for you. So it's kind of a very advanced servo tester. And then they also have PPM and S-Bus if you want to put S signal out on S-Bus. So you could do things like check a flight controller. If you want to have channel 5, for example, be at a certain range, you can do that as well. Okay, and then there's also the ability to do an ESC test. It's a little bit more of a complicated test, but basically you plug an ESC in, you plug it into power, you connect it to a motor, and it'll spin an ESC. I found limited use in that because I just don't really think I really want to use a charger to test it. And there's a limited amperage capability, so I just really haven't found any value in using the ESC test. And then I showed you power earlier, so that's it. All right, I'm going to check questions again, and then we're going to shut this down. Darren Ray says, hit the like button. I appreciate that. Thanks, Darren. If you guys could hit the like button, that'd be great. I like that it has USB. Oh, yeah, that's right. The USB port. That's very cool. I use that actually quite a bit at the field, too. You can plug stuff in and charge your phone or your cameras or anything. If you have microphones, whatever, you can charge that stuff on these USB ports. I really like that they're including USB on most of these chargers these days. Is this charger reliable? How long have you been testing it out? This is the first look. So I mentioned this in the earlier part of the video that this is the first look. And what I do is I'll keep these chargers on my desk and use them for a while. And then I can give you an idea in terms of reliability. So in this case, this D9, I've had this for quite a while. Sorry, M9. I've had this for quite a while, and I will eventually do another video on it, and I'll talk about it. But when it's a first look like this, I don't know. I don't know in terms of reliability. I can say I've had chargers die, so it's kind of hard for me to evaluate that on a first look. But when they send these things out, we do want to put the information out there and share, how they work and what we think. But, the only thing I can tell you in terms of long-term reliability is keep an eye on the channel, and eventually I'll come back and do a video and tell you what I think of this over time. That's all I can say. It's a fair question, but, it's a function of time. Let's see. Arazi B Production says it means if you're recycling the discharging current to an external power source like your LiPo. Yeah, you can do that. By the way, you can set if you have the input source set to battery, then when you use discharge, you can send the current back through the charger the other way at a much higher discharge rate. So that is a capability based on whether or not using a battery as a power source. Just make sure you understand what your capacity is on your input source, because you could you could send too much out. So just be careful with that. How would those sounds are? Can you turn the speech on for a short demonstration, even if you like it? Yeah, I can turn it on. Sure. Yeah, I can turn it on. I'll see. I don't know if I can get the mic to pick it up or not, but I'll try. Let's see. We'll do announce volume, and I'll turn it on high. Hi. And I'll turn operation volume on medium. And I will try and let you guys get a I'll try and let you hear what it sounds like. I don't know if you can hear it. That's beep, beep, beep based on menu selections.
Battery selection.
There you go. So I stopped on battery selection and she spoke it. Here's the next one, continuous work.
Continuous work.
Hopefully you guys can hear that.
Work completed.
All right, so that's the audio prompts. So hopefully you heard that. If not, you know, I'm sorry. I held it right up to the mic. I'll try it one more time just to make sure.
Continuous work.
There we go.
Battery selection. Theme style.
So there you go. Loud and clear. You got it. All right, perfect. So you got an idea of what the audio prompts sound like. Again, you know, not my favorite thing, but, you know, I guess, you know, especially if you, you know, have glasses maybe, and you don't wear your glasses all the time, maybe that would be helpful. Yeah, it's not my deal, though. I like to turn that off. What I will say in my box, though, is I did not get an SD card. I actually had to borrow these from my M9. So I had an M9, and I looked on their website, but I didn't look for a download. I'll tell you what I'll do, though. If you guys are interested, just let me know in the comments after the video, and I'd be happy to put a zip file in my Discord hosting these files if you want them. And they were a direct translation from the M9. I just simply copied the card. Where is it? There it is. I just took the SD card out, copied it on my computer, dumped it on another little card I had for this one, stuck it in, and it just worked. So I'll be happy to, you know, host those if you guys need them. Thanks for the demo. You're welcome. All right, let's see. How would those sounds? Can you? Okay, we did that. Servo tester is nice. Yeah, I like the servo tester. That's one of the things I really like about these multifunction units is that on the bench, if you're doing some work, it's got a lot of little capabilities built right in. If you're setting up, say, a plane or a quad, you know, or a heli, you can test things out, get things centered, and you don't need a bunch of other devices. So that's one of the things I really like about the Toolkit operating system, and I think they've done a good job in their operating system, kind of giving us tools that are very useful for plane or quad or heli setup. So that is one of my favorite features. And it's also why I keep one of their multifunction units on my desk. I keep it nearby all the time because I'm always using the features that come with it. Did you test the 100 watt AC? Yes, I did. At the very beginning of the video, I did a test and showed that it sat there at 100 watts, no problem. So we got that. All right, guys. Well, I think that's the end of the questions that I see. I hope you enjoyed the video, my first look at the ToolkitRC M7ac. Again, I want to say thanks to Toolkit for sending this device out for review. Remind you that if you want one for yourself, I've got affiliate links in the description. Helps the channel if you guys use those because I get a little referral fee and it doesn't cost you anything extra. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. If you like this kind of material, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know new videos hit the channel. That's all I've got for today. Take it easy.